I was sitting at my desk in the study reviewing quarterly reports when my daughter burst through the door. Her face was pale, her hands trembling as she gripped the doorframe. "Mom, we need to talk. Now." I set down my pen and studied her. Sarah had always been composed, even as a child. Seeing her like this sent a chill through me. "What's wrong?" She closed the door behind her and crossed the room quickly. Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Dad is planning to divorce you. He's already hired a lawyer. I overheard him on the phone in his office yesterday." The words hung in the air between us. For a moment I couldn't process them, couldn't breathe. Then the shock gave way to something sharper, hotter. "Tell me everything." Sarah sank into the chair across from me, her words tumbling out in a rush. "He was talking to someone about asset division. He kept saying he needed to move fast before you realized what was happening. He mentioned filing papers next week, and Mom, Vanessa has been calling him constantly. I saw the texts on his phone when he left it on the kitchen counter last night." Vanessa, his ex-girlfriend from college. The woman who had smiled so sweetly at our wedding 28 years ago, while her eyes promised she would never really let go. I felt my jaw tighten. My hands clenched into fists on the mahogany desk that had belonged to my father. "After everything," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "After everything I've done for him." The anger rose like a wave threatening to drown me, but I forced myself to take a breath, then another. Rage without strategy was useless. I had learned that from my father. "Where is he now?" "At the office. He said he had meetings all afternoon." I nodded slowly, my mind already racing through possibilities, contingencies, options. "Call Michael. Tell him to come here. I need both of you." Sarah pulled out her phone immediately. Her husband Michael had always been sharp, trustworthy, a corporate attorney with a mind like a steel trap. Right now, I needed that mind on my side. While Sarah made the call, I opened my laptop and began pulling up files. Bank accounts, investment portfolios, corporate documents. The architecture of our financial life spread across the screen in neat rows and columns. Everything he had, every comfort he enjoyed, every shred of success he claimed, it all traced back to me, to my family, to my money. 28 years ago, David had been a charming business student with big dreams and empty pockets. I had been the daughter of the city's most successful commercial real estate developer, educated in London and New York, newly returned home to help run the family empire. We met at a charity gala. He was there on a scholarship student's ticket, looking uncomfortable in a borrowed suit. I found his ambition refreshing after years of dealing with trust fund brats who had never worked for anything. He pursued me with determination, sent flowers to my office, showed up at company events, made me laugh with his stories about growing up with nothing and his fierce desire to build something meaningful. I fell for it, all of it. When we married, my father was skeptical but willing to give David a chance. He offered him a junior position at our company, starting in commercial property management. "He'll need to prove himself," my father had said. "No special treatment." But there had been special treatment. How could there not be? I paid for David's MBA program. I made sure he got assigned to the most promising projects. I quietly smoothed over his mistakes and magnified his successes in meetings. When my father died 10 years ago, followed by my mother 3 years later, David had already climbed to a director-level position. He now oversaw a division worth tens of millions. People in the industry respected him, sought his opinion, called him brilliant. They had no idea that his brilliance was built on my family's foundation, on my guidance, on my unwavering support. And now he wanted to divorce me, take everything I had given him and walk away. No, not happening. Michael arrived within 30 minutes, his usually friendly face set in grim lines. He kissed Sarah quickly and turned to me. "I've already started making calls. We need to act fast." I stood and moved to the sitting area by the window. They followed. "First, tell me legally where we stand." Michael pulled out a tablet and swiped through several screens. "Good news and bad news. The good news is that most of the major assets are in your name or in family trusts that he can't touch. Your father was thorough. The bad news is that David has been the director of operations for years. He'll argue he's entitled to a significant portion of the company's value based on his contributions. I felt my lip curl. His contributions. I know, Mom, Sarah said softly. We all know the truth. But the court will see a man who's held executive positions for years. Then we'll need to show them more than that. Michael leaned forward. What are you thinking? I looked between them, these two people who had proven their loyalty over and over. I'm thinking it's time to show everyone exactly who built what. I'm thinking we have about 1 week before he makes his move, and we're going to use that week to move faster. By the time he files those papers, he'll discover he's trying to claim things that no longer exist in any form he can access. Sarah's eyes widened. You're going to move the money. Every penny that I legally can. Into accounts he doesn't know about. Into investments he can't trace. I'm going to restructure the company holdings, reorganize the trusts, and make absolutely certain that when this divorce happens, he walks away with exactly what he brought into this marriage. Michael was already typing notes. I'll need to bring in some specialists. Tax attorneys, asset protection experts. We'll need to be extremely careful to stay within legal bounds. Of course, I'm not trying to hide anything illegally. I'm simply exercising my right to manage my own assets. He's been planning this divorce in secret? Well, he's about to discover what real planning looks like. The anger was still there, but now it had direction. Purpose. I had not survived in the commercial real estate business for 3 decades by being soft or sentimental. I had inherited my father's empire and doubled its value. I had navigated economic crashes, hostile takeovers, and cutthroat negotiations. David had forgotten who I was. He had started to believe his own mythology. The story he told himself about being a self-made success. I was going to remind him. Over the next 3 days, my house became a war room. Michael brought in 2 partners from his firm. We worked 16-hour days, reviewing documents, restructuring holdings, moving assets with surgical precision. I liquidated investments and transferred the funds into new accounts at different institutions. I reorganized the family trusts, exercising clauses my father had wisely included that allowed me to modify terms under certain circumstances. I moved real estate holdings into new LLCs with ownership structures that excluded David entirely. Sarah monitored his movements, tracked his calls, kept me updated on his activities. He suspected nothing. He came home each evening, ate dinner, made small talk about his day, and went to his study to continue plotting my downfall. I smiled at him across the dinner table and asked about his projects. I was pleasant, attentive, the perfect wife. Inside, I was counting down the hours until I owned his complete destruction. On the 4th day, the first crack appeared in his facade. I was in the kitchen making coffee when Vanessa called the house line. I picked up before David could get to his study. Hello? A pause. Then her voice syrupy and false. Oh, Patricia. I didn't expect you to answer. Clearly. What do you want, Vanessa? I was hoping to speak with David. He's not available. Another pause. I could almost hear her calculating. You know, Patricia, I've always admired you. The way you've managed to keep David all these years. That takes real determination. My hand tightened on the phone. Is there a point to this call? Just wanted to catch up. It's been so long since we've really talked. Maybe we should have lunch sometime. Woman to woman. The condescension in her voice was unmistakable. She wanted me to know she was still in his life. Still relevant. Still a threat. I don't think that will be necessary. Pity. I think we'd have a lot to discuss. About the future, especially. I hung up without responding. David appeared in the kitchen doorway a moment later, his phone in his hand. Who was on the phone? Wrong number. His eyes narrowed slightly, but he didn't push it. He never did. That had always been his way. Conflict avoidance, smooth smiles, playing the reasonable one. "I have a dinner meeting tonight," he said. "Don't wait up." "Of course, have a good evening." He left. I watched his car pull out of the driveway through the kitchen window. Then I called Sarah. "He's meeting with her tonight. I want to know where, and I want photographs. Already on it. Michael is following him." My daughter had inherited my strategic mind. I had never been prouder. That night, while David was at an intimate restaurant across town with Vanessa, I met with my attorneys in my home office. We reviewed the final documents. Every asset accounted for. Every loophole closed. Every contingency planned. "He's going to realize something is wrong as soon as he tries to access certain accounts," Michael warned. "Let him. By then it will be too late." "You're sure you want to do this? Once we file these papers, there's no going back." I thought about 28 years of marriage, 28 years of building him up, supporting his career, tolerating his increasingly entitled attitude, the way he had started treating my parents' company as if it were his own achievement, the way he spoke to me in meetings with barely concealed condescension, as if I were an aging trophy wife instead of the CEO. I'm sure. The next morning, David came down to breakfast looking smug. He kissed the top of my head and poured coffee, humming under his breath. "Good morning. Sleep well?" "Very well, actually. You?" "Great. I've got good news. I'm going to be traveling next week for that Seattle project. I'll be gone for a few days." Seattle, where Vanessa had recently moved. How convenient. "That's sudden," he shrugged, not meeting my eyes. "Just came up. Important deal." "Of course." I buttered my toast and said nothing more. Let him think I was clueless. Let him believe his plan was working. That afternoon, while David was at the office, I received a message from Michael. "Everything is in place. We can file whenever you're ready." I sat in my father's study, surrounded by photographs of our family. My parents on their wedding day, Sarah as a baby, pictures of the company's first major development, the hotel complex that had launched our fortune. My father had taught me that in business, timing was everything. You waited until you had every advantage, every piece in place, and then you moved decisively. It was time to move. I picked up my phone and typed a response. "File the papers tomorrow morning. I want them served at his office." There was a pause, then Michael's response. "Are you sure you want it public like that?" "Absolutely certain. He wanted to humiliate me by divorcing me. Let's see how he likes being served divorce papers in front of his entire staff." I went to bed that night calm and clear-headed. Tomorrow would change everything. The call came at 10:30 the next morning. I was in a meeting with my marketing team when my phone buzzed insistently. David's name on the screen. I excused myself and answered. "Yes." His voice was strangled, barely controlled. "What the hell have you done?" "I'm not sure what you mean." "Don't play games with me, Patricia. I just got served with divorce papers. At work. In the middle of a meeting with clients." I walked to my office window and looked out over the city. "Oh, that? Yes, I thought we should make things official." "You thought? Are you insane? You can't just—" "Can't what, David? File for divorce? I believe you were planning to do exactly that." "I simply saved you the trouble." Silence. Then, lower, more dangerous. "We need to talk. Now. I'm afraid I'm quite busy today. Perhaps your attorney can coordinate with mine." "Patricia." "Goodbye, David." I ended the call. My hand was steady. My heart was racing, but my mind was clear. He called back immediately. I declined the call. He called again. I turned off my phone. An hour later, he showed up at my office. My assistant tried to stop him, but he pushed past her and burst into my office. "What the hell is going on?" I looked up from my computer calmly. "You'll need to make an appointment. I'm very busy." He slammed the door and crossed to my desk. His face was red, his eyes wild. "Stop playing games. Why did you file for divorce?" I leaned back in my chair and studied him. This man I had spent 28 years with. this stranger who had been planning to betray me. Why were you planning to file? He froze. Sarah told me everything. About the lawyer, about your plans to move quickly before I realized what was happening, about Vanessa. His expressions cycled through shock, denial, then calculation. I watched him decide to bluff. I don't know what you're talking about. David, I have phone records, text messages, photographs of you having dinner with her. Don't insult me by lying now. He stood there, breathing hard, trying to figure out his next move. Fine, yes. I was considering divorce. Our marriage has been dead for years, Patricia. You know that. Interesting. I thought we were fine, but clearly I was mistaken. You've always been so cold, so controlling. Everything has to be your way. Your company, your money. Your rules. I felt my temper flare but kept my voice level. My company. Yes. Let's talk about that, shall we? Let's talk about whose money paid for your education, whose connections got you your first job, whose family built everything you've enjoyed for the last 3 decades. I've worked for everything I have. You've worked with everything I gave you. He stepped closer, his voice rising. I've earned my position. I've made this company what it is. You've helped run a company my family built. There's a difference. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You've never respected me. Never seen me as an equal. Just someone you could buy and control. I stood slowly, meeting his eyes. I respected you when you earned it. I saw you as a partner when you acted like one. But you've spent years resenting me for the very advantages you enjoyed. You wanted all the benefits of marrying into wealth without any of the gratitude or loyalty. Gratitude. You want me to bow and scrape because your father gave me a job. I want you to be honest. With yourself, if not with me. You didn't marry me for love, David. You married me because I was convenient, wealthy, connected. I made your life easy. That's not true, isn't it? When did you fall out of love with me? Or were you ever really in love at all? He opened his mouth, then closed it. The silence stretched between us. Finally, he spoke, his voice quieter. Maybe it started as opportunity, but I did love you. Once. And Vanessa? He looked away. She understands me. She sees a successful man and wants to ride his coattails. Just like you saw a wealthy woman and wanted the same thing. You deserve each other. His jaw clenched. Fine. You want a divorce. Let's do this. But don't think you're going to walk away with everything. I've earned my share of this company. Your share. I smiled then and watched his expression change as he realized that smile meant nothing good for him. What? David, I've spent the last week with the best attorneys in the state, reviewing every asset we own. Do you know what they found? His face went pale. What did you do? I protected what's mine. The company shares that you thought you had access to. Turns out they were always held in family trusts that you were never actually part of. The investments you believed were joint assets. They were always in my name alone. The properties you thought we owned together. Those have been reorganized into entities that don't include you. That's illegal. It's perfectly legal. I've simply been managing my own assets. You're welcome to challenge it in court, of course. I'm sure the judge will be fascinated to hear how you plan to divorce your wife and take half of everything her family built before you came along. He stared at me, comprehension dawning. You moved the money. Every penny I could legally move. You wanted to leave me with nothing? Congratulations. You'll be leaving with exactly that. 400 million, he whispered. You moved $400 million? Approximately, yes. The exact amount depends on current market values. He sank into the chair across from my desk, all the fight gone out of him. How did you... Sarah, she told you. She did. She's quite protective of her mother. Unlike her father. I'm her father. You're the man who raised her. There's a difference. And right now, she's not particularly impressed with you. He put his head in his hands. I can't believe this is happening. Really? You can't believe that actions have consequences. That betrayal leads to retaliation. He looked up, and for a moment I saw something that might have been genuine regret. It didn't have to be like this. No, it didn't. You could have been honest. You could have come to me and said you were unhappy. We could have discussed it like adults. Instead, you plotted behind my back and planned to humiliate me. Vanessa said you'd never let me go, that you'd destroy me if I tried to leave. Well, she was half right. I wouldn't have destroyed you if you'd been honest. But since you tried to ambush me, yes, I'm destroying you. Professionally, financially, socially. When this is over, everyone will know exactly what you tried to do and how spectacularly it failed. You're vindictive. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. He stood abruptly. I'm going to fight this. I'll take you to court. Please do. I have evidence of your affair, your planning, your attempt to manipulate assets. I have witnesses who will testify about your behavior. I have documentation of every penny I've invested in your career. Go ahead and fight me, David. I promise you, it will be the last mistake you make. He stood there, shaking with impotent rage before finally turning and walking out. The door slammed behind him. I sat back down at my desk. My hands were trembling slightly. I had expected to feel triumphant. Instead, I just felt tired, sad for what had been lost, angry about the waste of it all. But beneath the sadness and anger, there was something else. A fierce satisfaction. A knowledge that I had protected myself and my family's legacy. That I had not been the victim he tried to make me. Sarah called that evening. Mom, Dad just left the house with 2 suitcases. Are you okay? I'm fine, sweetheart. Is he staying somewhere nearby? He said he was going to a hotel. Mom, he looked destroyed. Good. A pause. I know he deserves it. It's still my dad, you know? I know, honey. It's okay to still love him. It's okay to be sad. But don't doubt that you did the right thing by telling me. He was going to do this anyway. He just wouldn't have failed so spectacularly. She laughed a little wetly. Michael says you're terrifying when you're strategic. Your grandfather always said the same thing. He'd be proud. I think so too. The divorce took 6 months to finalize. David hired 3 different attorneys, each one eventually telling him the same thing. He had no case. The prenuptial agreement he'd signed without reading carefully had been airtight. The assets were mine. The company was mine. Everything was mine. In the end, he walked away with exactly what he'd brought into the marriage. Nothing. Plus a reputation in shambles and a fiancée who lost interest the moment his financial situation became clear. Vanessa, it turned out, had no interest in a disgraced, penniless former director. She moved back to Seattle and married a tech CEO within a year. David tried to find work in the industry, but discovered that word travelled fast. No one wanted to hire the man who tried to steal from his wife's family company. He eventually took a job with a small firm in another state, earning a fraction of what he'd made before. I didn't feel sorry for him. On the day the divorce was finalized, I had dinner with Sarah and Michael at my house. We toasted with champagne on the terrace, watching the sunset over the city. To new beginnings, Sarah said, and to women who refuse to be victims, Michael added. I smiled and raised my glass. To family. Real family. The people who stand by you when it matters. We drank, and I felt something loosen in my chest. Relief. Peace. The knowledge that I had weathered the storm and emerged stronger. I was 52 years old. I had just survived a betrayal. A divorce and a battle for my own legacy. I had won on every front. And I was just getting started. The next morning I walked into my office with my head high. My assistant greeted me with a smile and a stack of messages. I had a meeting with a developer about a new downtown project, lunch with a former mayor who wanted to discuss a public-private partnership. A conference call with investors in Tokyo. My life wasn't over. It was beginning again. David had thought he could take everything from me. He'd believed his own story about being the source of our success. He'd forgotten that I was the woman who built empires before he ever walked into my life. That was his mistake, and it had cost him everything. I sat at my father's desk in my corner office, looking out over the skyline filled with buildings my family had developed. Properties we owned, businesses we'd launched. This was my legacy, not his. Never his. And I was going to make sure everyone remembered that. 52 wasn't old. It was powerful. It was experienced. It was dangerous to anyone who underestimated me. David had learned that lesson the hard way. I hoped Vanessa enjoyed her consolation prize while it lasted. The man she'd wanted so badly was broke, disgraced, and alone. While I was here, stronger than ever, ready for whatever came next. Some revenge is hot and immediate. Some is cold and calculated. The best revenge is simply being absolutely, undeniably, triumphantly yourself. And that's exactly what I plan to be.